children from that generation, and I'm the youngest. When I was born, John Hogue was 64 years old. And so as he was maturing, I didn't really get to know a whole lot about John or ask the questions I would have loved to have asked him. And, you know, when you're 15, 16 years old, things that you would like to gain some information from your heirs, to find those golden nuggets that they had. I was too young to even think about that. But there were some things that I cherished. I remember when I stayed overnight at the house on Center Ridge. It was 20101 Center Ridge Road. And I remember staying in the house. And John Hogue, even after 80 years old, he'd get up in the morning and he could still touch his toes in the morning. That was part of his exercise routine, to actually stoop over and touch his toes. Well, let me get back to how John progressed in his you might say, experience in Rocky River. In 1908, he took the money that he had earned up until that time, and he bought out the Pease heirs for the property that he basically took title to at 20101 Center Ridge Road. There was 26 acres at the time, and 2 years later, he took 10 acres of the backland there, and they formed the Rocky River Greenhouse. And he was an officer of that organization for 2 years. And I believe after the 2-year period, he had his investment that he had in there. He had it returned to him. He turned around in 1912. He built his own greenhouse there on Center Ridge Road. This ended up to be a 2-acre plant that basically was raising tomatoes and a 3-crop lettuce crop. Now, I'll share more with you about that later. John also served on the Cleveland Market Gardeners and Producers Association. At that time, his name was not spelled H-O-A-G. The Hogues that came from Scotland were spelled H-O-G-G. And in 1913, the spelling was changed for all the Hogues that lived in Rocky River and around that were tied to the same family. They changed the spelling to H-O-A-G. So my father, and Josephine, and Lucille, and Ruth Springer, they were all given at birth the spelling of Hogue, H-O-G-G. Now, I think the thing that I'm so interested in terms of my grandfather, is that he had his eyes on what was going on around him. And I believe he saw unfairness that was taking place, where people were taking advantages of people. But he also saw that as a golden opportunity. The first thing that I can share with you, he basically started he raised capital for the Rocky River Basket Company and the capital that was generated from that, he bought out the Wicks Basket Company, and then from that formed the Rocky River Basket Company. Now, probably he saw that as an opportunity for growth, because he could see that the farmers at that time probably were not being properly cared for. I think from the marketing standpoint, he saw an opportunity from a marketing venue where the commission salesmen and the commission houses in downtown Cleveland were probably charging a little higher rate. And so what he did, he went out and formed a commission house called Cleveland Growers Marketing Company. And the stock in the Cleveland Growers Marketing Company was all held by farmers. So it was basically important for the farmers to support their organization so they would send their produce to the market. Now, when it was sent there on a commission basis, produce was sent and cared for in lots. So you were never paid back for your produce until every basket in your lot was sold. And they would tabulate all the different prices that that lot would have received. Now, if you would have, let's say, real good tomatoes at the beginning, you got maybe a higher price for that, and as maybe the tomatoes might have softened up or something like that a little later, maybe they had to sell it at a cheap price in order to clear the lot out. But anyway, that was the start of Cleveland Growers Marketing Company. Now, he also, on a second try, obtained a charter for the First National Bank of Rocky River. The First National Bank of Rocky River was located across the street from the Westlake Hotel, and it remained there for a number of years. And then when Broadview Savings and National City had a merger, we had two branches of National City, you might say, in Rocky River, and the one next to the beach cliff ended up to be the survivor, and they shut down the National City closed the branch across from the Westlake Hotel. Now, the interesting part was that branch across from the Westlake Hotel was the second branch that National City Bank had bought. The first one that National City bought was at the Shaker Square in Shaker Heights. Now, since then, National City has branched out and bought a lot of banks in the meantime. But anyway, in Rocky River case, that was the second branch that was purchased. John Hogue also started the Lakewood Park Cemetery, which is still thriving today, and it's a spot of beauty that is well recognized with a park-like setting that the cemetery offers, and the beauty that it has, especially this time of year, just past the flowering crabs and flowering crab apples, and also the pears and all. And the beauty just before Mother's Day there at the cemeteries is gorgeous. Also, in 1927, with some outside investors, he started the Falls Greenhouse Company. And the Falls Greenhouse Company started with their first portion of a 6.5 acre plant of starting 2 acres. And that was in Umstead Falls, Ohio, just off of Lewis Drive. And he would, John Hogue would go over there 2 or 3 times a week just to stop by, just to see how things were going in that greenhouse. That greenhouse stayed in business until about 1979, 1980. 1979 was the last crop. In 1980, they shut down. Let's see. Concerning the Rocky River Greenhouse, as I said before, they had 2 crops. One crop was a crop of lettuce, and they would start this crop right after sterilizing the soil in around the 1st of September, and they would stage their planting, starting their seedlings in a bed, a raised bed, and once the seedlings would get to a prominent size, that they would actually transplant them out into the greenhouse, and they'd be transplanted in about 12 by 12 centers. And then there would be 2 crops of straight lettuce in the greenhouse, and then they would plant the tomatoes, stage those in after a block of ground was vacant. They would plant tomatoes there, and then they would intercrop their last lettuce crop. So that would be their 3rd lettuce crop. And typically, they would harvest their tomatoes from the latter part of April till the first part of August. So that was one crop of tomatoes, and that's how that worked out. Let's see. One thing that I remember growing up in terms of John Hogue, we had a 6-acre plot of Iroquois melons over in Avon. And John came out and visited our house because I lived in Sheffield Village. And he came out and visited on a Sunday tour looking at the melon patch. This patch of melons had 95% of these melons that need to be harvested the next day. And so the entire work crew ended up harvesting melons all day long. We had 3 truckloads of melons that had to go to market that day. And he would come out on Sunday, look at that one, look at that one. Oh my, look at that one. And he would love to go down and pick a melon. He would eat the melon right in the field. And he enjoyed that fresh produce. And so he just could not get over it. In fact, I couldn't get over it either in terms of how many melons were coming, were ripening at the same time. Now, the interesting thing there in terms of how marketing was done then and how it's done now. One of those truckloads of melons went to the Hawkins Market in Worcester. Well, what Mr. Hawkins would do is he would contact the local radio station and he would put an announcement on the radio. Folks, I got a fresh truckload of melons coming to the market. You got to come down and get your fresh melons. Well, today, and that's how they would sell out their melons back then. Today, with the computers, do you think it would be faster? No. What they do is they have to program 4 weeks out. 4 weeks out in terms of what specials they're going to have. Not even knowing if they're going to have the quantity of product that they're going to need. So what they try to do is to contact the farmers to guarantee that they'll deliver X amount, minimum of X amount of product, and it'll be there at Y price. Well, you have environmental conditions, rainy conditions. I've known of a situation where a farmer had guaranteed Walmart $5 dozen corn for the first corn that came on the market. It ended up, there was a lull in the seeding of the corn. And based on how the corn was planted, there wasn't any local corn, but he had to guarantee Walmart to get that $5 corn there. So what did the poor farmer have to do? He had to go out and buy $8 corn to deliver $5 corn. So he lost money in order to honor the contract. So marketing has changed a lot over the years. And the unfortunate thing is people at home are not consuming the freshness that they once did. And they're not consuming the quality that they once did. And so as a result, you're finding today part of vanishing America, let's call it, where people don't know how to cook the things that you folks knew how to cook and prepare wonderful meals. Back then, when you were fixing a meal for your family, you probably only ate out once or twice a month. Where today, people probably only fix once or twice a week and fix a meal at home. So anyway, this is just the change in terms of how things have changed over the years. Another experience that I remember from John Hogue is when he came out and visited a nasty tornado that hit our greenhouse in Sheffield. This was in June of 1953. We had a 4-acre greenhouse, and it took out 3 acres of glass. Well, we had to replace 3 acres of glass. At that time, the insurance company wanted us to get whatever we could out of that crop. We had the tomato packers sorting the tomatoes, and all of a sudden the lady would bring a tomato over. Did you see that? Well, you didn't see it at first, but all of a sudden the light would have that reflection. There would be a sliver of glass going right in, pierced into the tomato, going right into the tomato. And so what we had to do is we had to, everything that we had harvested, we had to haul off to the dump and make sure none of it was consumed. And so the entire crop was a loss. And it took us 13 weeks to repair all the damage and get the greenhouse, having upwards of 65 people working there a day. As Carl was pointing out, glazers were making like 85 cents an hour. I remember the timesheets, records that we had to keep for the insurance company. And some of the people were only making 30 cents an hour back in 1953 in terms of working and doing part of the cleanup. But that was a huge loss, but we responded and they were able to get a crop growing back there in September. And we were able to get ourselves on our feet on the ground again and get rolling. And next year, you hardly knew that we had had the tornado. John has served when he was in business. I consider him, you might say in today's terminology, leveraging an opportunity where he could actually see what was going on in the community, what was going on with the farmers, and he could sense a need. He sensed that need by starting the bank. And he basically brought many businesses through the Depression of 1929 and 1930. And the bank survived, and the bank was strong, and the bank did well. A couple comments that was directed to me in our prior presentations was pesticides. One thing that we found out later on with regards to pesticide use, that I'll use this bottle as an example. Well, actually, I should use a quart bottle as an example. Anyway, we would have to mix up our pesticides, and our biggest pest in the greenhouse was a white fly. And you probably have the white fly out in your garden if you have a garden. And the white fly is typically a nasty pest because part of the excretion from the white fly tends to be on the tomato fruit and on the leaves, and it's a pretty nasty pest. Anyway, we found out that when we would spray the tomato plants, we found out that you could put on a quart to a quart and a half of malathion per 100 gallons of water. Well, the next day, this is applied per acre, so you're spraying at just a small amount of pesticide that actually reached the plant. But one thing we found out was that we would get a better kill by putting less pesticide on if we adjusted the pH of the water. If the pH of the water was 7.0, we could kill almost every white fly in the greenhouse. But if the normal spigot water was 7.5, you could even put on more than the 1 quart per 100 gallons of water, and it wouldn't kill the white fly. But if you actually neutralized that water and had it at 7, you did an outstanding job of killing the white fly. Our best product for killing white fly was Cyanogas. Now, Cyanogas had to be applied very carefully. And what we do is we take a 1 quart mason jar and drill either a 5/16 hole or a 3/8 hole in the top of the lid. And what we would do, let's say this was a greenhouse we would go down this row, go to the end of the greenhouse and come back almost the outside row. It would be the second last row coming back. And there was enough product in there to make the trail of Synagas going down that row and coming back that row. We found out if we used like a 5/16 hole, we could have a growing crop in there that wouldn't affect any of the blossoms or anything there, but it did a great job of killing the white fly. With regards to later on, to do a final kill, we would put a little more in, and we would fill the jar with Synagas, and we go to the larger hole, 3/8 inch, and we just put a larger dose on the same space. I think other than that, my grandfather served on many boards. He started the Lakewood Park Cemetery. I understand he was instrumental in starting the Lakewood Country Club. He served on many boards, the National Vegetable Growers Association, Ohio Greenhouse Association. He just was a prominent person around with regards to wherever he was. And other than that, many great memories of the man. I played golf with him when he was probably about, he was probably about 83. He passed away in March of when he was 85 years old. But still had a strong mind, and he was real sharp. I was real blessed that I had the opportunity of knowing him. I wish I had known him earlier, that I could have asked a lot of questions and found out some more golden nuggets that I could have shared with you tonight.
Thank you very much, Jack. You can always remember John, known as Mr. Rocky River. He carried that title for many years. Are there any questions from the audience? Do you have a microphone?
Any questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did the chemicals you put on the plants have any lasting effect to the fruit, or did it affect the human beings, or did it dissipate?
It dissipated. We had the only thing that we could use in the greenhouse had to be a label approved, and so based on the products that we use, it was only products that we could that had passed prior pesticide residue tests and everything else. And as a lover of tomatoes, I probably ate more tomatoes off the vine the day after they were sprayed. I didn't even wash them. You know, they talk about DDT. My father and myself have probably breathed in more DDT dust than you can imagine. Shake a stick at. They call DDT as the bad pesticide, but you know, I'm still walking, still ticking.
Jack, were the greenhouses in Sheffield, were they your grandfathers or were they your fathers?
Okay.
Actually, the question was, were the greenhouses in Sheffield owned by John Hogue, your grandfather?
Yeah. Okay. Now, what happened in 1929? He bought the land out in Sheffield Village. My dad was not there at that time. He had rented some greenhouses over in the Shaft Road area. And so the greenhouses actually started under John Hogue's supervision and got built out there. My dad followed the next year, and he was out there from 1930 on until he passed away in 1983. And but John Hogue and Ellis Hogue didn't become partners until, I'm not sure exactly what year, but my father ended up having a 1/3 share in John Hogan's Son. And then he basically bought out his sisters as a result afterwards.
Anyone else?
Question?
Can I ask another question? Where was Market?
Where was Market?
Where was Market?
Okay.
1925.
In 25.
Market in 1925 was Woodland and about 10th and Woodland. And basically there they had covered stalls where farmers would back up their trucks and they would actually market their produce in these stalls. And there was 2 stalls on Woodland Avenue at 10th Street. And then they also had a storage building there that the farmers, if they ended up wanting to leave anything there till the next market, they could store it inside there. But the actual market, the terminal market, was at, they called it 40th and Woodland. And typically, you take where the post office is at Orange Avenue, and you go straight east there, you actually dead end into the market at 37th and Orange Avenue. And that's where the Northern Ohio Food Terminal is today. Now, Cleveland Growers Marketing Company used to be there and was a strong member there up until, oh golly, about 2002. And they Cleveland Growers Marketing Company also ran Greenhouse Vegetable Packing Company at the same time. At that time, the Greenhouse Vegetable Packing Company was sold to a promoter, and he basically bought the place, and like 6 weeks later he died, and it ended up that there was just a bunch of weeds growing up out there at the Greenhouse Vegetable Packing Company for a number of years. Cleveland Growers Marketing Company had a place off of West 130th Street, and that place was built. It was a state-of-the-art place, just an amazing place. You could eat off the floor. I mean, it was a phenomenal place. But they ended up having financing for that facility tied to the LIBOR. And the LIBOR rate doubled in a short period of time, and they got killed with all the interest that they had to pay. And they went out of business like 2 years ago.
If you're interested in Rocky River history, and obviously by your presence here you are, there's a place that you should know about on Linda in Rocky River, Treats Restaurant. Their restaurant is full of historical pictures of Rocky River. It's just a marvelous, marvelous historical place. And they have an excellent collection of Cowan pottery. If you've never been to Treats on Linda, please go there. It's a trip back into historical Rocky River. And the 2 gentlemen who own Treats are with us tonight, Rich and Jim Wilson, are right here. They deserve your support. Are there any other questions? Yes?
Is Ron going to show us what he put over his shoulder at us? Not yet.
Is Ron going to show us what he put over his shoulder?
Jack has been talking about the marketing situation, and I remember going to market with my dad as early as I could possibly go to the market. And I remember everyone at the market had one of these, or one of these. That was all the cash sales went into that pocketbook until they got home and they took it off and counted what they had. That's my memory.
They didn't call it a fanny pack back then.
It's funny you mentioned that, because that was the same thing all the milkmen carried too. I haven't seen one of those in years, and I know my dad had an old smelly old leather thing.
I have a question. I remember those greenhouses when I was a child, but when they all closed, what happened to all the glass and frames and things that made heat, and where did all that go?
The Kramer greenhouses we had taken over in the last few years that they were there. And then the I-90 came through our main greenhouses along Westway and left the Kramer greenhouses without any frontage. And Jack Nichols and Buddy is, they came along and decided that they could put a street in on a vacant lot there on Lakeview and create Kramer Drive. Well, our family took those greenhouses down, and we were moving out to Strongsville at the time. And every evening when I went to Strongsville, I had a truckload of asphalt on the truck which made our driveway. That was from the city of Lakewood, and a good-sized flatbed trailer loaded with all the lumber and the glass from the Kramer greenhouse. Now, we didn't use those to rebuild greenhouses, but the so-called sash bars, all the wood structure was beautiful cypress, clear cypress material, and it never rotted, even if you didn't paint it. And we used it to create our growing benches inside the greenhouse. And the pipe, the 2-inch pipe that was the gutter post, we used that for posts on the benches, and there happened to be 1-inch steam pipes in there. We used that on the top of the bench. So we used most of that material inside the new greenhouses. So a lot of it was used that way, but I'm sure most of it went to the landfill.
Right.
How was the soil sterilized in the greenhouses in those days?
How was the soil sterilized in greenhouses in those days?
The steam, as I mentioned before, was piped through tile, which were about 18 to 20 inches under the ground level itself. And pure steam, as we know, or water vapor, is 212 degrees. You had to get the soil temperature up, which you would check periodically, in the 140 to 160 degree. But occasionally you'd get like a mud pot where the steam would then get through in the moisture, and you had to walk on that further across the top of the paper covering it, and you had to watch. You didn't sink down in those or you'd get severely burned. But that temperature destroyed all the various parasites and so on, and bacteria in the ground.